viewers, hello vinyl community. I've been away from making videos for a couple of days, well, been quite busy. Also had a relative visiting me for a couple of days, so we were a bit busy doing other things than sitting here talking on webcam. But I have, and I'm enjoying a nice cup of coffee in my Beatles mug. Lovely. I have actually got hold of some very nice records the last week or so. Some that I bought on auctions and some that I got in other places. Pardon for a bit. And I'm going to start with in my book, most exciting new finding, and it's a record that I've been trying to get hold of for, well, since I first heard of it in July this year, and it's the Swedish prog group Splash. And this is their second album. I managed to get hold of this, the third LP by Splash during the record fair in Solna month and a half ago, and now I managed to buy this on an auction. And what do we say about the contents? Well, the sleeve is not in the perfect condition. It only has 3 tracks, 1 track on one of the sides and 2 tracks on the other. And what about the music? Well, we find progressive, we find jazz, we find rock, we find folk music, a bit of blood, sweat and tears from time and time. Lots of horns. We have trumpets, flugelhorns, bass trombones, saxophones and stuff like that. And also we have some fiddles, and the last track on this album is a samba, so it's very varied. But extremely well played. It was recorded in Norway, in Oslo, and it was issued on the Splash own label, Play or PLA. Yeah, a very nice label actually. This album was not for free, I have to say that, and it's let's see if it wants to focus here. Yeah, well, fairly good. But I think it was definitely worth it if you get hold of this or see it anywhere, and it's not, well, even if it's quite expensive, try to get hold of it, because it's definitely worth having. It has a sleeve that's made by the artist, what's his name again? Cover design by Ardy Struver, which was a very popular artist in the 70s and 60s in Sweden. Yeah. The second best finding is Shocking Blue at Home, and we talked about this at the YouTube vinyl community at Facebook, and I added there that I thought that here in Sweden it's quite easy to get hold of this album. I didn't have it myself, but I knew that I've seen it several times. So then I decided, well, I should get this. So I tried to get it, and well, I was wrong. It was quite hard to get hold of, and lots of people wanted it. It seems like Shocking Blue is quite sought after these days. This is the issue with their big hit Venus, on Metronome. The original was issued on Pink Elephant, and I think the first issue was without Venus. This looks as if it's in one of these Blake sleeves. I bought it on an auction, so I'm not sure where it comes from. It has this very bit of an odd plastic sleeve. Very nice, I have to say. Much better than the other plastic sleeves you see. Right, those are the 2 best ones. So now comes the rest ones. the rest of them. This is the last LP of the group Aston Reimers Rivaler. I've shown their records before. This was issued on Mercury in 1988. And to be quite honest, I haven't listened to it yet, but it flopped. And one reason is mainly because those who were the most familiar faces, so those who wrote the songs, those who stood out in the Aston Reimers Rivalers orchestra, they had all left the group when this was issued. So I haven't listened to it yet, but I will. Then over to a Swedish jazz band that I managed to find 3 albums with. It's a group called Jazz Doctors. They started their career in the late 50s, and this is I think it's a bit of a compilation LP. Well, maybe not compilation, but it was issued in 1970, and it contains recordings from 1969 and 70. And we have the trumpet player Staffan Kjellmor was a bit of a leader together, and before he was the leader, it was the clarinet player Gösta Linderhol, who later would join a group called Sveriges Jazzband, and later he would be a solo artist in the singer-songwriter style. This Happy and Blue is an RCA Camden album from 1970, with recordings from 1969 and 1970. Great stuff in the traditional style of jazz music. Traditional, but with a Swedish touch. This is a later album. It's on the Storyville label, Dr. Jazz, Jazz Doctors from 1980. And we have the singer Marie Jonsson, who has joined them here. Also great album. But it's the third one that I found that is the most exciting in my book. It's Viva Mus, Låt oss leva, from 1989, and it was issued on the label of the Swedish comedians Hans Alfredsson and Tage Danielsson, Svenska Ljud. And the reason why that label issued this one is because Hans Alfredsson has written some of the lyrics on this album, and on some of the tracks we hear the singer, Swedish jazz singer Claes Jansson, who is one of the best Swedish male jazz singers in my book, Claes Jansson. And well, the first track on this album actually has lyrics in Latin, Viva Mus, with Let Us Live. Right, over to some different jazz issues. Well, first of all, we have Big Band's Greatest Hits Volume 2. It's a CBS issue on the orange CBS label. We have Lionel Hampton, Charlie Spivak, Les Brown, Duke Ellington, Ray Noble, Kay Kaiser, Harry James, Sammy Kaye, Guy Lombardo. I got it for almost nothing, so it's good. It's not fantastic, but it's good. Okay, then I got this double album. Let's move this a bit. That's blues rock, and it's a compilation. It's on the it's on the Philips label. It says on the sleeve. We have the Philips logotype here. But the funny thing is, when you open and pull out the record, we have a Mercury label. So what's that all about? I have no idea. It's the right record, but it has a different. It's got the right contents, but the record has a different label and different number than the sleeve. So I don't know what that's all about. But Mercury and Philips seem to be very closely related in Europe in the 1970s. What do we have on it? Well, we got Buddy Miles Express, Sir Douglas Quintet, Chuck Berry, the McCoys, Cuba and the Blizzards, Blue Cheer, Jerry Butler, Mother Earth, great band, Tongue and Groove, John Dummer Blues Band, Colosseum. Nice compilation, although a bit confusing when it comes to record label and record number. Right. Another jazz compilation on the Biograph label. This is called Chicago Jazz. Very sparse album design, but lots of information, and most of the time very good transfers from old 78 RPMs. This is from recordings from 1923 to 1929. I have to show you lovely Biograph label in the style of old 78 RPMs like this. Nice, isn't it? I'm very fond of these, and they're not that hard to get, and they're not that incredibly expensive. Well, they're not that common, but not hard to get. Not that many that fight to get these. They want the originals of the 78 RPMs instead of, and of course so do I, but this is a nice alternative. Okay, have another sip of coffee. Nice. Oops. Okay, over to an album that I bought on a whim, mainly because because of the label. It's Sars Brothers. It's Peter Sarstedt and his brother. Can't remember his name now. But it's their album Words Apart Together. I haven't listened to it yet. The sleeve looks a bit worn, but the record itself is very nice, and it also has this fine. Is it a it's like a poster with different lyrics, and it's on the label that I think is a bit exciting. It's on the Regal Sonophone. It was used as a normal pop label on the 78 RPMs in the 30s, early 40s. And it was brought back to life in the 1960s and became a bit of a prog label, so that made it a bit more interesting. This is from 1973. Right. I think I've talked about the record label Transatlantic that brought you very nice British folk music. The people who had that record company, they started a second label in 1977, I think, called Logo. It was quite a short-lived label. I think it disappeared in 1980 or something like that. This is a record on their label, Street Band, London. I haven't listened to this yet, but I thought it looked slightly interesting. If nothing else, it has this wonderful see-through vinyl. You don't see that every day, so it's a bit of a eyes choice here, not the ears choice. I haven't listened to it yet, so I may like it. Look forward to listen to this later. Right, then over to two compilation albums, Doobie Brothers, Best of the Doobies and Best of the Doobies Volume 2. I mainly know of the Doobie Brothers songs, Long Train Running, and listen to the music. And of course, they are great songs. I like them very much. I get in a good mood when I hear them. So this is a good way to hear if they had any other songs worth listening to. All of these records, apart from the first ones I showed with Shocking Blue and Splash, all of them costed almost nothing. So we have here the Blues Busters, this time on the Landslide Records label from 1987. It's a promo copy, and I don't know that much about this group, but I would guess it's some sort of blues rock of some sort. Okay, I'm very fond of these RCA Vintage Series albums. This is with a great trumpeter, Bonniebergen. Bit forgotten today, alas, but he made some of the greatest. Oh, look at this inner sleeve, isn't it beautiful? Lovely. He made some really great recordings back in the 1930s, and I have to show you the label for those of you. How come it always turns it the wrong way? This is a replica of the scroll label that Victor used in, I think, from 1929, 1930 up until, I think, the early 1940s. So I think that's a quite nice feature when they use their old 78 RPM labels on these reissues with the old jazz from the 78 RPM era. Right. The last two albums I'm going to show you is with a Swedish Dixieland traditional jazz band called Hot Frogs. This is Hot Frogs and Friends featuring Carina Lade. This is actually, it looks signed, but I'm not sure by who. It may be signed by the person who actually bought it and given it as a Christmas present, the Christmas 1978. But I can't really, well, I don't think it's from anybody in the band, so it's not really worth talking about. Very traditional Dixieland. We have Sweet Sue, At the Jazz Band's Ball, Stumbling, I Can't Give You Anything but Love, It Don't Mean a Thing If It Ain't Got the Swing Tie Rag, stuff like that. But the loveliest thing with this label is the label. To show you this, those of you who have knowledge about 78 RPM labels, they recognize the design and of a label that was called Gennett. But this label is called Kennett with a K instead of G. I think that's quite neat. And the label on one side is green, and the label on the other side is, well, pinkish purple. So I think the label is lovely. These were distributed by Polydor, these Kennett issues, and it's from 1976. And I got another one also on the Kennett label. It's a bit later, from 1984, A Froggy Day. The lovely froggy sleeve here, and you can have a look at this, a bit simpler white Kennett label, but it still has the Gennett us who love great old jazz recordings are very fond of. So that's that for this video, and I wish you all the best and hope to see you again soon.